Hi, I'm the lone journalist for KRAZ-TV with another book review. Actually, we're going to have two of them today. And with these subjects, they have to be at the Zero Channel, our adult side. That's right, it's called Hidden History, the secret origins of the First World War. It's by Gerry Docherty and Jim Macgregor. God, what a story. And here it gets exposed for the first time that I've ever read it is, well, we've always heard that term, the elites. Well, in this term, and in this book, it talks about an organization called the Secret Elites and how they came about in the 1890s or about there. Gerry Docherty is a former head teacher and author of several historical plays. His most recent, Lie of the Land, told the story of two cousins from the same small village in Scotland who won the Victoria Cross at the Battle of Lewes in 1915. Jim Macgregor is a former GP. He was raised in a cottage in the grounds of Erskine hospitals for the war disabled, and as a result developed a lifetime interest in the origins of war. Well, it is a book from Mainstream Publishing, Edinburgh and London. Hidden History uniquely exposes those responsible for the First World War. It reveals how accounts of the war's origin had been deliberately falsified to conceal the guilt of the secret cabal of the very rich and powerful men in London, responsible for one of the most heinous crimes perpetrated on humanity. For 10 years, this is long before the Second World War, the First World War. For 10 years, they plotted the destruction of Germany as the first stage of their plan to take control of the world. The assassination of Archduke Franz Ferdinand was no chance happening. It lit a fuse that had been carefully set through a chain of commands stretching from Sarajevo through Belgrade and St. Petersburg to that cabal in London. Our understanding of these events has been firmly trapped in a web of falsehood and duplicity carefully constructed by the victors at Versailles in 1919 and maintained by compliant historians ever since. The official version is fatally flawed, warped by the volume of evidence that was destroyed and concealed from public view. Hidden History proposes a tantalizing challenge. The authors ask only that you examine the evidence they lay before you. What a horrendous story. And I guess, considering today's situation and how people feel, and they call a lot of people conspiracy theorists and all of that, that's probably overdue. This book was written or published in 2013. So that was 10 years ago. So I'm just sorry I didn't read it sooner. But I did find this in the Tucson Pima County Public Library. It does have the secret society, who it was, how it got started, and there was a Professor Quigley who finally wanted to come out with this book. Was written in '49, but was only released after his death in '81, and it was called Anglo-American Establishment and Tragedy and Hope. However, that book hardly was ever found because, of course, all these conspirators years later still went around and bought all these copies up and made sure that the story did not get out. So it actually started with Cecil Rhodes and a few of his cohorts and Milner and all of that. So let's see, I got pictures here. It was the Transvaal was of Dutch, and that was was where the Boer War was. But anyways, they had diamonds and gold, and then in the Cape Colony of the British, they had the gold mines. And then a little bit northwest of that here on this map, over in this area, was German Southwest Africa. Now they were peed off already because they did not like Germany, and now this was before 1900, so several years. And they wanted to drag Germany into a world war then. The actual war that they got started on and all of that did not happen until after the Boer War, and in 1905 they started plotting until it actually happened in August of 1914. There was Sir Edward Grey, Alquist. Now, before 1901, Victoria was still queen, and here's an interesting fact: in her whole reign, in 63 plus years, there had never been a year of peace in England. They were always starting wars, taking over countries, and all of that. So it was an amazing story. Well, anyways, here's some pictures. These pictures are in the middle. This is Cecil Rhodes. This is Quigley, the professor, many years later, who tried to Milner. He was the guy here in England, and the money man was Rothschild, Nathaniel Rothschild. They call him Natty. So there was the inner circle, and then there was Balfour. He was a prime minister at one time, but they kept all of this from the liberals. Now there was conservatives and liberals, and then later the Labour Party came in. But Lord Roberts in Cape Town in 1900 with Milner started out this conspiratorial collection. But they all came from Balliol and Oxford. There's Balliol College in Oxford, so a lot of this had big ties to Oxford's. Smuts was a Boer hero and inner core of the super elite, they call himself. The big Grey was the Reluga 3 was Grey, Haldane, and Asquith. And no matter who was in power, and even when they changed, they never exposed or told any truth. They always lied. Small wonder, huh? But the truth was never told to the House of Lords, House of Commons, any of them. And throughout the years, I mean, continuously, even when they had takeovers, some of the liberal parties, they didn't want any part. They wanted social reform in England at the time. But the closer they got to war in the World War I, they had the Irish problem. And they went so far as to smuggle arms over and blamed on the Germans they were in Ulster, and they tried arming both sides. So they were just conniving little assholes or bastards. I don't know what you want to call them, but Zero Channel, I can say that. But it was terrible, terrible. So in the Boer War, they finally worked on a peace to where the Boers and the Brits shared in South Africa, and then from there they went on to their intrigues that began all this World War I business. And actually Germany never did really want war at all, and Kaiser Wilhelm and the Kaiser, Wilhelm II came afterwards, but the Kaiser and all that tried to keep saying, no, we're not in this, and they send letters. Now sometimes Asquith and Grey and all these, he was the Secretary of State of Foreign Affairs. He would always say, well, look, I've got these telegrams, we just sent them to the Germans. They were never sent. And it was just an amazing, contrite boondoggle that just eventually did end up causing the war, and it was a tremendous, tremendous. And the people still never caught on many years later. And I've done a story about Churchill, and I always wondered why he was such a little warmonger. He was part of this group. That's correct. I did not know that. And he mobilized troops even before they were getting ready to go. And the few days or whatever when they said, well, now we're going to war, and they go get mobilized and send the Army or the Admiralty and the Navy, they were already on their way. They're already on their way. So it just goes to show you that I don't care how you look at it, the ones that keep mum and push it and say that they're for peace were really just the opposite. And so it was really a sad story, but this is a true story. And it's an amazing, amazing story. And I could go on and on about the intrigues. And it talked about a lot of the industrialists and how they used many countries across the world. And the strangest thing, and it really told, now this is towards the end of the book, how America was involved by the intrigue of banking systems that involved roads and their families and the big banks, Morgan and all of those, Warburgs and all those people that started the Federal Reserve. So now you know where it happened was in this intrigue before World War I. So I don't know. I could go on, and I'm just not going to, because it would just get you angry, and so you really need to take a sharp eye and actually study this methodically, and you will understand why things today have become affected from things like this many, many years ago. So get the book and keep the faith and keep learning. And then the second book I'm going to put out will have a little tie-in to this, but it's a real doozy too. So there it is, Hidden History, The Secret Origins of the First World War by Gerry Docherty and Jim Macgregor. Thanks for watching KRAZ TV, and keep reading. You'll learn something.